Not from Leicester, not from Kettering, and not from Northampton. Live from Market Harborough, this is 95.1 HFM.
HFM Weather in association with the new South Leicestershire Learning Innovation Centre. New location, new ways of learning, new experience for you. For more information, telephone free on 0800 731 6723.
Moving back to today's programme, what are the kind of issues are we going to discuss today? We're going to be talking about what we mean by community media, just so we've got a clear understanding of what it is we're talking about. Then we're going to be looking about how information communications technology can support community media, and finally we'll be moving on to what kind of value can community media offer to society. So what is community media? Well, I guess you're listening to an example of community media today over the airs. It's radio, it's television, it can be websites, it can be newsletters, it can be posters. It's any form of communication which allows ordinary people within the community to be able to reach out to within their own community and also outside. Can information communications technology support community media? Well, last week we had a classic example of how this community media can be supported by information communication technology. We had Paula Draper in the studio, and if you're logged onto our website at www.hcln.net/HFM, you'll see a picture of Paula Draper. Paula Draper was talking about her video project, exploring the experiences of a lady with breast cancer, offering hope to other people, and how she was sharing those experiences through the medium of the website and the medium of video. We'll be talking to Bob Bridges very, very shortly. So, how does community media support society? Well, we're going to be debating that very shortly, but it's arguable that community media helps to create a more equitable and balanced society by giving a voice to ordinary people. So, on with the show. What kind of channels can we use for community media? We're talking about radio, television, press, we're talking about websites, we're talking about forums, possibly documentaries, as in the case of Paula's video. We're talking about publishing tools, and we're talking about providing training for people who want to express themselves. And that is the purpose of Innovation House, which is exactly where we're broadcasting from now. Well, Innovation House on the Welland Business Park, home of the South Leicestershire Learning and Innovation Centre. Innovation House is a community media and lifelong learning centre. Very shortly there'll be some launch events, and you will be able to visit Innovation House and take advantage of some of the great training that will be on offer. And remember, if you've got any questions today, on 0800 917 2617 in the UK, or 496074 864 802 outside of the UK. So we're moving up to our first of our special guests. Before we bring Bob into the equation, we just want to do a quick check on Claire's sheep watch from Madewell. As I mentioned on Friday, Claire has gone on holiday to Ireland, so she's not with us to give us our sheep watch. So instead of Claire's lovely picture on the screen, we have a picture of the Madewell ram. And on Friday we had an update, stop press, the Madewell sheep have been shorn. Claire will be with us next week to continue her Madewell sheep watch. So Paula Draper, we mentioned Paula Draper last week. We were hoping that she was going to be able to join us in the studio again today. Unfortunately she's not here, but if you're logged on to www.hcln.net/HFM, you will be able to see Paula's picture on the screen, and you will be able to pick up her profile. So now over to our first studio guest, Bob Bridges. It's a great pleasure to have you on the programme with us, Bob. Good morning to you.
Good morning, it's a pleasure to be here. A little early in the morning for me.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I'm sure that's not right. Surely in your line of work you must have some pretty early starts.
Well, actually, yes, I was thinking as I said that. Normally I'd go on my way down to London now.
Yeah.
But being the Jubilee holiday, fortunately I got a couple of days off.
Okay, Bob, what project are you working on at the moment?
Currently the second Harry Potter film.
second Harry Potter film, and the first one's only just been out.
Yes, that's right. That came out in November.
Yeah.
We started shooting number 2 3 days after the release of number 1. And that'll keep me going now till July.
Till July.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, perhaps we can go back a little bit, Bob. How did you get into this kind of work with Hollywood blockbusters in the first place?
That goes back 25, 26 years now. I started on Superman, the first Superman movie, which I fell into basically because I had a friend who was telling me just how wonderful the film industry was, and all the nice places he was going to and all the nice money he was earning. And at that time I was working with the BBC and radio, and which, because of things like pay restraint and whatever, wasn't the best place to be working at that time. So I left, and my first job was essentially just sweeping the floor. And helping the carpenters out, putting up sets and things. But since I'd had technical training, I managed to work my way in with a few technical people, and they eventually got me a job on the camera side of things, which I did for quite a few years.
Yeah.
And now I'm involved in partially with the camera and partially with helping out the visual effects people. Working, simulating the shots that we're going to be doing in the computer later, but I have to simulate those effects on the studio floor so the directors and producers and cameramen can see how the shots, just basically to make sure they're going to work.
So like a rough cut, basically, is it? Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
And what was the very first film you worked on then, Bob?
That was Superman.
That was Superman?
Superman the movie, yes.
Superman the movie, and you were involved in doing the flying sequences with it?
That's right, yeah. I was, we had, in those days there was very few, in fact there were no computer effects, which form the mainstay of most pictures these days. I mean, Harry Potter, number 1, I think I heard quoted that we had between 600 and 700 computer generated effects in that movie. In Superman we had none.
So it was all done by mirrors and smoke, was it?
Yes, indeed. And we had Superman strapped into a harness, Chris Reeve.
Yeah.
Strapped into a harness, which we then had to move around against various moving backings, and doing lots of optical effects. We actually have to take the film, either do things in the camera or take the film and manipulate the film itself.
Yes.
And one of my jobs was basically just pushing him around on a trolley to make it look as though he was moving places. So
is that what they call do they use what they call the chroma key background, or like a blue background effect?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can then superimpose what they're doing against some background. Yeah.
We use today we use a variation. We can use any colour basically.
Yes.
So in the old days it had to be blue.
Yes.
Very brightly lit blue.
Yes.
Actually a very specific blue, which had to match exactly the blue dye on the film.
Yeah.
Film being made up of 3 layers: red, green, and blue.
Yes.
And blue is the top layer, and it was the easiest one to sort of scrub away when they were doing it by hand, essentially. So it's traditionally it's blue, but these days with computer we can just take any colour we want, really.
So are you saying that they physically scrubbed away a background of a film to get this effect?
No, not scrubbed away, but used chemicals to take out the blue dyes, and to manipulate the dyes in the film, and to replace areas which they'd taken. So they scrub out the red and the green and put something in its place.
Yeah.
Quite a complex process, but these days, I mean, anybody can do it with a home computer and a very basic video editing package can do blue backing,
right,
or green backing, or red.
So we can all be potential Hollywood moguls then, making our own movies.
Yeah, we did with ICT. The first time we started to use computer effects that I was aware of really was when it was starting to do the Muppet movies. We had particular problems on the Muppet movies because we had one character was Gonzo, who was blue.
Yes.
And the other is Kermit.
Well, that's a bit of a problem.
Everybody knows he's green, so we could never do an effect shot with the two of them together.
Right.
So we had to always have Kermit against the blue backing and Gonzo against the green backing. And add them later.
I think that sounds like a question for a quiz prize later on. Why do you never see Gonzo and Kermit on the same shot?
Yeah, but I mean the computers. I mean even then, I mean you were looking at very slow processes, looking at huge computers to do the job. But now, I mean, the technology has advanced far enough now that people are doing it on G4 Max. It's fairly basic high-end machines. But they can do a lot of the stuff we're doing on Harry Potter eventually is manipulated on G4s and the like.
Right, G4, just explain that.
That's the Macintosh.
Oh, right, yes.
The Macintosh version of a 2 gig PC with a processor or whatever. You know.
So the kind of machine that you could go out into PC world or to an Apple Mac dealer and you could get that and you could do...
Talking probably... When they first started, you were talking hundreds of thousands of pounds, if not millions of pounds, to have a computer and the software to do all of these effects.
Yes.
And now you're basically down to a £2,500 machine.
Yes.
To do the same effects. And what you do, but essentially you do it all in your computer, and then pass it over to be rendered, which means that every file has to be manipulated separately. You can do it all on the run, as it were.
Yes.
See the effects of the shot and get all the authorizations and the make sure the director likes what he sees, and then you pass it out and it's rendered out at what we call full res.
Yes.
Which is good enough. What you're doing on the G4 initially is good enough to be seen on your 17 or 21 inch display.
Yes.
Then it has to be turned. It'd be good enough to be seen as 17mm on the Odeon Leicester Square on a huge screen.
Yeah. So that it goes from basically you hand that over then to post production who do that kind of that kind of work. Yeah. Okay. Stay with us then, Bob, because I'm just going to play a little bit more music, and then we'll be talking a little bit more about your community media work and a little bit more about Harry Potter.
With Harry Potter, fortunately, I did my best on number 1 and didn't block my copybook, so I was invited back for number 2 and fingers crossed for number 3.
Excellent. Was there number 3 in the pipeline, is it?
We start shooting that in January, we haven't last year. January or February next year.
So, are you on commission from the box office receipts of these
films?
I
wish I was. I wish I was on point. Especially something like Harry Potter.
Oh, absolutely. But Harry Potter's. You worked on films like Lost in Space, I believe, as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
That was a childhood ambition realised.
Oh, right.
When I was a kid, I always liked movies, I always liked science fiction. I always wanted to be an astronaut, a spaceman, but one of the things I used to do as a kid was mess around with electronics. And I used to build little panels with flashing lights, sort of a la Thunderbirds, with press buttons and the light would come on and things would flash. I mean, very, very simple. But it was always an ambition of mine to get involved in doing something like that. And then a few years ago I was invited to go on Lost in Space as a computer and video supervisor, effects supervisor. And I actually got to build some of the panels, or sort of fit out some of the panels on the Jupiter 2 spaceship with the big video screens that were in there, and I was involved in designing and building the video screens and generating the graphics to go on them. And, it was wonderful. It was
great. So all that tinkering about you did as a child. Well, I'll let you into a little secret now, because many years ago I was when I was 14, I was in the Scouts, and we used to get involved in charity raising of things, and like you, I used to enjoy that kind of fantasy kind of tinkering. And I remember doing a gig, for want of a better word, as a fortune teller. So I dressed up as a fortune teller, and I rigged up this crystal ball, and basically it was the bottom of a flask to get the crystal ball effect. And underneath I had this little contraption where you turned a handle and the coloured lights used to shine inside of this flask. So yes, I had the same kind of tinkering in my youth as you did, but not with the same kind of end product. So these computer displays on Lost in Space, were they actually shot in real time, or were the displays superimposed later?
No, they were shot in real time. It was quite interesting because they wanted a very futuristic look, obviously.
Yeah.
It was set in the future, and the usual way of doing that, if you have they had kidney-shaped screens, for instance.
Right.
I won't do this with my hands because the audience can't see what I'm doing.
Yeah, Bob's playing with his hands at the minute.
No, kidney-shaped screens.
Yeah.
Which, in normal situation, I would have put just a normal monitor, so some kind of computer or video monitor behind a kidney-shaped hole, and just let the audience see the bit that came through. The hole. Unfortunately, they wanted to do that at the very top of the panels, so we weren't able to use standard monitors because you have the corners sticking out at all angles.
Yeah.
So we had to back project everything.
Yeah.
Which I thought, well, that's fine. I just make a hole in the back of the set and stick a video projector through onto the screen.
Yes.
And then they told me that the whole floor of the spaceship was on a vibration rig. So when it was flying through dust clouds and meteor storms and that kind of thing, that the whole floor would shake, but that the walls didn't.
Right.
So I wasn't able, so I then had to build these rigs with lots of mirrors and try to fit a projector which should be like 4 or 5 feet away from the screen.
Yeah.
Within about 18 inches of the screen, and there's like a series of angled mirrors to get the picture onto the screen, which was fine until they started shaking the floor and all the mirrors started moving around. And, but it worked.
Yeah.
It worked.
Well, yeah. And the results of your work have literally been seen by millions of people around the world. That's quite a sobering thought. Well, we want to go on to some of the other guests very shortly. So I'll just ask you a little bit about your Harry Potter, and then we'll move finally to talk about the Silent Wings project. I understand when you were filming Harry Potter, there was a bit of a problem with the Hogwarts Express on one of the stations. You want to tell us about that?
Well, right at the very beginning of the movie, we went up to Scotland, where Hogwarts, the School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, is based, and they all go off on the Hogwarts Express, which is an old steam train. So we all went to Scotland, and one of those things that people never really think of. You make all these arrangements and plans, but there's always something. And in this case, it was the fact that so the demise of the steam train and the coming of the slightly narrower diesel trains and the small sprinter type trains meant that to fill the gap, they'd extended the platform edge.
Yes.
And nobody had thought of it when we put this huge steam train up there. Fortunately, it was realised just as the train was about to enter the station. Unfortunately, it was travelling very slowly, because when it got in there, it hit the platform. And a rather nasty scratch down the side of the engine, and so we had to back it off and wait half a day, delayed shooting half a day, where they took the extra bit of apron that they'd put on the platform and take that off. But a little bit embarrassing for rail track.
Yeah, not a lot of people know that. So when you're watching the Harry Potter movie and you see the Hogwarts Express going to that platform, you know the true story, because Bob's told us this morning. Okay, Bob, finally moving on to community media. I know that it's something that you care passionately about, that you've been helping people within the Harbour District, particularly young people, to get involved in something which gives you a lot of pleasure. And just tell us a little bit about the Silent Wings project.
Well, the Silent Wings project, I was approached by Mass Mytek and by Paula with a view to producing a video to promote her website, promote her ideas, and to show what something that can be done for people who are not necessarily with breast cancer, but with any kind of with illness or disability, something to keep them going. And so we put together the Silent Winds video. I mean, basically, the great thing about the use of ICT now, the thing that I'm trying to get across, is that it's opened up a whole new raft of possibilities for community media, for people who want to get their message across. Once upon a time, you know, if you wanted to make a video program, if you wanted to get your ideas out, it had to be something big. It had to be something that you could get onto local or national television or into the cinema. The technology wasn't there to let ordinary people do those things. The marketplace wasn't there, and the money wasn't there. But with the small, light digital cameras, nearly every computer now has the ability to use or to manipulate video, to do editing on. Anybody can put their ideas to good effect. They can make their dreams come true, put their ideas across, and there are new markets with the web. You know, you don't need the BBC or the ITV stations, the networks, to get your message out. You can do it on the web these days.
Yeah, so the technology exists really to give a voice for everyone, and
that's correct.
That's what we're trying to do here in Harborough with the Harborough Community Learning and Media Centre, providing people with training and an opportunity to get their voice heard with the tools and the technology available. Thank you very much for joining us in the studio, Bob, and good luck with the rest of your projects. Thank you.